So, let's say that you're just minding your own business one day when the Wizard of the Coast himself appears before you and offers to take you to any one plane of your choice to start a new life. Taking the wizard's hand, you select Lorwyn as your new home. It's a quaint world, nice and idyllic, with grand forests and lovely pastures, and you can't really think of anything bad about it. The locals seem friendly, the scenery is poetic, and the entire plain is almost dripping with fantasy charm. I'm here to tell you that settling down on Lorwyn would be an awful choice for a variety of reasons. If you decide to live here, your fantasy life may just come to an abrupt end via stabbing, goring, crushing, burning, and any other number of unfortunate ings. The multiverse of magic is full to the brim with possibility, and many worlds that may at first glance seem like a great place to live are in fact among the most dangerous. This will be the first of at least one video exploring the planes of the multiverse and the perils one is likely to find within. If, by the end of this video, you still believe Lorwyn to be your ideal homestead to be, then at least I gave you a fair warning. With that all said and done, here is why you wouldn't want to live on the night and day fairy tale plane of Lorwyn. As previously stated, Lorwyn is a beautiful world. Its forests and pastures are vast and open. There are many places to set up a home for yourself. But while the scenery is open, it is not necessarily uninhabited. In the wilds of the world lurk a plethora of dangers, with the most immediate being the local variety of goblins, the boggarts. While they may be more skittish and docile than the goblins found on other planes, boggarts are still savage creatures prone to lashing out in violence at perceived threats. These creatures tend to group up in large numbers, often in concealed warrens that you're unlikely to easily identify. While tiptoeing through the meadows, it's possible that you accidentally walk past the wrong hole or push aside the wrong log, angering 7 or 12 of the most violent, teethy, stabby gremlins you've ever encountered. They're fast, so running won't really be an option. They have strength in numbers, so fighting back is futile. The best chance of surviving an encounter with boggarts is to just avoid it entirely. So you'd best keep an eye out and look for signs of trouble in the underbrush. And while you are keeping an eye out below, what's lumbering above can be just as dangerous. The giants of Lorwyn are massive, nigh unstoppable juggernauts of raw muscle. Sure, some of them can be reasoned with, and they are even occasionally hired by the other tribes, but giants are a bit on the dim side and can be quite careless. If you don't watch your step, you can find yourself squashed underfoot by a giant who didn't even realize you were there. Another threat you may encounter is a deceptive one. The fairies of Lorwyn are a mischievous bunch, often seeking new distractions. As a human in a world otherwise devoid of them, it is almost certain that you will, sooner or later, come to the attention of the fairies and their queen, Una. The Fae will no doubt gain endless hours of entertainment by harassing you in particular, whether that just be observing you, stealing away your dreams with their magic, or playing any number of fairy pranks at your expense. And keep in mind, What may be harmless fun for the fairies can often be dangerously lethal for others. When you find yourself in the presence of Una's children, it would be wise to be extra cautious. Should you manage to survive long enough against the more overt threats of Lorwyn's wilderness, you may eventually stumble across civilization. Not all of this world's tribes are innately dangerous. The Kithkin, for instance, build up strong, healthy communities. The Marrow regularly engage with trade and transportation. The tree folk often take apprentices, dispensing knowledge. And even the isolated Flamekin send out pilgrims from time to time, engaging with the outside world in their own way. As a distinct outsider in the world, each of these tribes represents a problem interacting with. Each could find you as a strange oddity that they'd be cautious around, and the Kithkin in particular would be skeptical of you. The Kithkin are naturally wary of strangers, and may at first believe you to be some sort of fairy trick. Their local Sen, the Kithkin leader, may even bar you from town if you don't choose your words very carefully. While they're unlikely to attack you on sight, you may find that establishing good relations with a Kithkin town can be a slow, very careful process. You'll find your relationship with the tree folk, Marrow, and Flamekin communities to be an individual affair. While the Kithkin will accept or reject you as a whole thanks to the thought weft that holds them together, the tree folk, Marrow, and Flamekin are more independent tribes, and whether or not you get along with them ultimately comes down to whom you're interacting with. Perhaps you can strike up a good arrangement with a Marrow captain, or find a reliable traveling companion in a Flamekin pilgrim. Maybe you'll be able to leverage your unique nature to gain an apprenticeship under a treefolk sage. Regardless of which you choose, it is likely that seeking aid from one of these tribes is your best chance of survival on the plane. Now, not all of the more civilized tribes are necessarily civil. While you may find yourself on good or bad terms with the treefolk or the Kithkin based largely on your own actions, when dealing with the final tribe of Lorwyn, the Elves, the best course of action may be to simply avoid them entirely. The Elves of the Blessed Nation believe in their own dogmas of discipline, unity, and beauty above all else, and are quick to judge all other living creatures of Lorwyn by their own standards. An elf of the Blessed Nation would not think twice about killing anything that they perceive as ugly, since they believe wholeheartedly that such an act would improve the world. The Elves barely tolerate the other tribes of Lorwyn, seeing them as unfortunate necessities at best, and elimination targets otherwise. Now, it's not exactly a guarantee that the Elves would find you in particular to be an eyeblight, but your chances of winding up in their good graces are slim at best. While your status as a human may be enough to give them pause to contemplate your unique existence, it's also just as likely that they'd find that unique existence offensive to their grand vision of the world. Better to play it safe and keep out of eye's reach of the Elves if possible. Keep in mind that everything up until this point assumes that you're interacting with the tribes under normal circumstances during the daytime cycle of the plane, when the world is known as Lorwyn. However, Lorwyn is unique among planes in that it is a completely separate world when night comes. During the transition between day and night, in the moments where twilight rule over the world, an aurora, the Great Aurora, sweeps over all things, and with it comes a change to the world itself and all of its denizens. Lorwyn fades from memory, and the tribes of Shadowmoor awaken. With the coming of the aurora, boggarts become larger, fiercer, bolder, and more intelligent. The giants become even more primitive, often mumbling half-remembered tales of a sunlit world and recklessly trampling across the landscape. The fairies, for their part, do not change in Shadowmoor thanks to Una's influence, but they are likely to take advantage of the other dangers in this dark world, tricking travelers into bogs, dark caves, or the maws of unseen monsters. The Kithkin grow even more paranoid of the outside world, isolating themselves ever more fiercely in walled-off villages overrun by superstition. What's more, the scarecrows that they construct seem to be possessed by the magic of the world itself, coming to life and shambling across Shadowmoor. While scarecrows are themselves simple, often weak on their own, they still represent a threat in large enough numbers. The tree folk become bitter, rotten old trees that will gleefully tear apart any trespassers in their woods. The Flamekin become dim husks of their former selves, and now shamble across the land as the hateful cinders, looking for anything to burn with what little fire they have left. And the Marrow become murderous cutthroats that lurk in the waterways, ready to ambush any that stray too close to the edge of a stream. Only the Elves seem to change for the better. As the gloom of Shadowmoor descends, the Elves become the bold defenders of what little light and beauty remains in this forsaken world. While it is unlikely that the Elves would allow you access to their strongholds, perhaps you could find some protection by lurking close by. Even discounting the new threats you now face from the tribes, Shadowmoor is not a friendly place. It is a bleak, cold, and dark world. The forests and meadows have turned to barrens and swamps. Jagged outcrops of stone dot the landscape, and much of the world has become inhospitable. Strange, dangerous monsters lurk around every corner, and every waking moment is a fight for survival. If you're not careful, your next step in this dark land may just be your last. Lorwyn is a world filled with danger, one that becomes even more treacherous as night gives way to Shadowmoor. Still, it is a world filled with wonder, and you may feel the risk is worth the adventure. Is Lorwyn a world you'd wish to settle on? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, why not go ahead and leave a like or share it with your friends. After all, if this video is received well enough, more like it will be coming in the future. Finally, I'd like to extend a special thanks to my wonderful patrons. Patrons support the channel with their donations and in turn get early access to my lore videos. If you'd like to help out, a link will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Oh, also changelings exist. Feel free to ignore them.